We live in a time of overthinking. Many of you who want to start street photography think too much about what problems might arise, then just start and find out if these problems are even real. If you're one of those people who aren't quite sure how to get started with street photography, I've prepared 3 hacks for you that can also help advanced users simplify their street photography setup. If you like to see more tips like this, please don't forget to leave me a subscribe down here. And now let's get started. Tip number 1: simplify your camera. Take your photos with a fixed focus lens. With zoom lenses, you always have to consider which focal length you choose for a subject. This can cause you to miss some great photos or become too concerned with the focal length rather than the composition of the image itself. Zoom lenses can also cause us to become lazy and shoot from a certain distance instead of just getting closer to our subject. When we are closer to our subject, it appears more three-dimensional and lively and not as flat as it is often the case with a zoom. The problem is, many people new to street photography think it would be easier with a zoom lens. The opposite is the case, in my opinion. Zoom lenses often lead to poor composition and are usually weaker, which makes them less flexible in poor lighting conditions. And they are much more obvious to spot than small fixed focal length cameras like the Fuji X100V, this is my favorite, or the Ricoh GR3, also my second favorite. So to get started, be sure to get a small compact camera with a fixed focal length. A used Ricoh GR3 can be had for just 500 to 600 euros or dollars and is still one of the best street photography cameras on the market today, even 5 years after its release. Tip number 2: simplify your photo spots. As with choosing a camera, minimize rumination on the locations you're photographing. Find 1 or 2 spots in your city where there are always a lot of people, preferably with modern, clean architecture, where you can practice composition in both sun and rain and other conditions. This can also be a nice and cozy cafe where you can just simply take photos out of the window, especially when the weather is not that nice and sunny like we street photographers love it. And you know, it's important to stay motivated on cloudy days, and that's much easier if you are caffeinated. I have a great tip for you when looking for good photo spots. If you find cool street photos from your city on Instagram, but the exact location is not specified, do the following. Take a screenshot of the post. Cut out the screenshot exactly so that only the architecture you are looking for is in the picture. Then go to Google Lens and post the photo there. Google Lens usually recognizes the location, also displays other photos of the location. In the text of the photos, it will definitely say which place it is. Then visit this place on each of your photo walks. Over time, you will know which camera position and which image section achieves the best effect in these spots. Then all you have to do is wait for exciting and interesting people and the right light at the right moment. The best photos are more likely to come from photographing a location 10 times than 10 places each once. Tip number 3: simplify your camera settings. When it comes to camera settings, I could advise you to simply take photos in program or automatic mode. However, in my opinion, this is not suitable for street photography. The problem with this is that the camera tells you the depth of field, and therefore things can be out of focus that would have been better sharp for the image message you want to achieve. My tip for you is here. When doing your street photography during the day, use aperture 8 to 11 with autofocus or zone focus. I also made a video on zone focus, be sure to check it out. Set ISO to auto and choose 500 of a second for the exposure time, so that there is no unwanted motion blur. You keep these settings from sunrise to dusk. When it gets darker, switch to aperture priority, meaning you only choose the aperture and the camera tells you the rest. The exposure time and the motion blur will be more intense then, so To avoid this, if you don't want to use it as a stylistic device, you should concentrate on static or slowly moving subjects during night. If these 3 tips for simplifying your street photography have made you feel more confident while taking photos on the street, you can also try a slightly more complex setup, for example, completely manual or with multiple lenses. I can say that the best street photographers I know take the most impressive pictures with relatively simply and small setups. The more you can worry about the photo itself and the less you worry about technology or the photo spot, the better results you will get. What setup for street photography do you use? Please write it in the comments below. I'm very excited about your approach. See you in the next video. As always, happy shooting. Yours, Oliver.